Hey everybody, my next guest regularly performs at clubs and theaters all throughout the country, and with a laid-back, dark, comedic style, he has become one of the most in-demand headliners working today. He could also be seen on The Normal World on Blaze TV with his co-host Quarter Black Garrett, where they tackle all the absurdities of the world and turn them into comedy gold. Here he is, folks, the one and only Dave Landau. Dave, what's up, man?
Hey, not much. How you doing, Don?
Dude, this is awesome to have you on, man, and always a pleasure to talk to you. We had you on. It was like 2-3 years ago already. Last time
I want to say, yeah, it was like 3 years ago. I think it was in Cumia.
Yeah, you're still with the Cumia. It was that era, and you've you've jumped so much further. Like, not that it wasn't great with the Anthony Cumia. Shout out to Anthony Cumia, Long Island legend. But you've now got your own thing going on with The Normal World on Blaze TV. It's been quite the journey, huh?
Dude, it's been not bad. Is that your real background?
No, this is this is
Dang, all right.
I wish it was. I wish this is the Wayne's World. The Wayne's World.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was like, this looks amazing, but I know it from somewhere. And I'm like, all right. All right.
I wish it was, man, because but when we went into the lockdowns of COVID era and everybody started taking their shows remotely, I just gave an homage to the OGs of the podcasts, which was
the originals.
Yeah, which was Wayne and Garth, man. But
that's awesome.
It's time to party. Welcome to Wayne's World. I'm your excellent host, Wayne Campbell. With me, as always, is Garth.
Party on, Wayne.
Oh, party on, Garth. Okay.
But I do want to give a shout out real quick to Gerard Michaels, also, who wrote that sketch, professional protester sketch that we all got to work on. That was a blast, man.
You did a great job with it. Thank you so much for doing it, man. Like, the way you made it look like actually ESPN. And it just looked like Sports Center, and yeah, I can't thank you enough. It looked absolutely perfect.
And welcome back to America's favorite election year pastime, the 2024 College Protester Draft. Only the most dedicated, most vocal, and most obnoxious will get to live out their dreams of going pro.
That's right, Bill. Not only is one of these lucky people's lives going to change, but the entire fortune of the organization along with it.
No, there was a blast. It's always great working with you guys, and honored to be part of the Normal World and Blaze TV, and then working with Gerard's always great. And that dude's probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life.
Gerard, he's amazing, dude. He is fantastic, man.
Yeah, he's a great dude, and but it was great. Work with him. We all worked together once before too on that show tonight with Michael Loftus and the whole gang over there. Yeah.
Oh, who is it? Oh,
Hi, Dad.
oh, Hunter. Oh, I thought this was a nightmare for a second.
It probably is.
Well, why?
Well, first of all, this is fentanyl. My tolerance is way up. Secondly, syphilis from a whore. Gave it to Bo's wife.
But with the professional protesters thing, with the protests and this whole kind of, I feel like we're in this somewhat of a civil war happening amongst these protests. It made me thinking when I was putting it together. Do you think, like, how much of these protests do you think are bought and paid for, and how much do you think are really kind of true grassroots with a purpose? Because I'm kind of like on the fence personally. I think it might be a lot of the a chess game with millionaires, so to speak. I don't know if I'm crazy or what.
I think, well, it doesn't make sense if you talk about a liberal ideology, supposedly, right? And you look at it through just that lens, because if you say it's so weird. If you say anything now, you can offend anybody. So you say something in favor of Israel, and it's like, okay, Zionist, and it's like, do you guys even know what that means? Do you have any idea? Like,
right, exactly.
Like the Articles of Zion, it was a parody. It wasn't. If you look back on it, it's absurd that anybody would think that. But okay, Jews have been kicked out of every Arabic country. I'm saying this is a completely non-Jewish person. There's like every Arabic. There's like 10 left in Egypt. They've been thrown out of everywhere. You're left in Israel. And you're saying it's their land. And then you have from the river to the sea, which means we get it all. And again, You're anti-genocide, but you're saying kill all the Jews. That's the side that you're on. And you're going to tell me that that's some sort of liberal woke ideology to be like, oh, well, we're against killing babies, we're against genocide. You're a moron.
Right.
Like at this point, you're a shill. You're being played, and I think that it's like it's so weird to think of it. Is it a grander conspiracy, or is it just playing on the fact that people are completely ignorant and they're willing to jump on anything without doing any research whatsoever? And that's the part that I don't understand. And you look at that too through like, okay, let's say Catholics, that's what I was raised, Christians, whatever. It's like, do we like that Bethlehem is controlled by Palestinians? Do we like, like what we consider our holy land? Like you don't see us going over there and causing issues. Like we don't. The whole thing seems orchestrated, especially in America, because like, okay, like you're going on to the Jimmy Kimmel show and you start screaming when Kamala Harris is on. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but it's like, what's your end game?
Right. Right.
There's nothing that can be fixed in that. It's just it's chaos, and it just seems to me to be it's controlled chaos. The problem is will it be eventually a chaos that can't be controlled? And I think in 2020 we got dangerously close to that. We got well, I wouldn't even say dangerously close. We did get uncontrolled chaos, and then we ended up being locked down. So, I mean, how much worse is it going to get until Pete? Can we swear on this?
Oh yeah, sure. Feel free.
Like until people give a fuck. Like,
Right.
is it going to be where McDonald's is? It's $15 to get a hamburger, which it already is very close to that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like all the money that you have is being printed while you're still being taxed on what you have left. Housing rates are insane. And now, even if they're dropping a little bit, the interest rates are still at 10%. Like you're going to tell me Trump overvalued a property, but in 2008, they overvalued everything, destroyed the economy. The tax bailers bailed them out, and no one went to jail. We have Trump going to jail on 34 counts of one thing, or not going to jail, but being found accused of. And that's not even being like a Trump thought. Frankly, like I'm not even a. That's the hardest thing about being on the Blaze and on right-wing media is being critical of Trump, which I am.
Right. Right. And I think you
but
should
you
be.
have.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I think that's a good thing to be for you to be, if you're right of center or you're a centrist or whatever or an independent. I think being critical of Trump is a good thing too. I think he should, he shouldn't we shouldn't blindly follow anybody.
No, and there's a blind allegiance to him, and there's a part like when you see like the memes of Jesus holding him, and it's like they called me guilty too, and it's like, well, yeah, because we remember when Jesus was having sex with porn stars and paying them hush shekels, because that's like it's bad shit to like even contrast those two things, but at the same time, he's a guy who they hunted. It's a witch trial. It's like, sure, he's guilty of that, but at the same time, you can't even compare it to every other politician that's ran for office. And the fact is you deliberately looked for it. It wasn't caught. It wasn't, you hunted him down until you were able to find it so you could get somebody to not run. That goes against everything. I think it goes against all the moral fabric of this country. I really do. And so many people will disagree with both sides of those statements. And I just don't care anymore because it's coming from lunacy on both ends, where it's like he should be allowed to run.
Right.
The fact that Joe is even still there when the guy is at a Juneteenth celebration, just staring like the other day he shit his pants and not in a way like accidentally, like he was just standing there shaking, taking a shit. And we're fine with this. Like, we're not going to pretend anymore. Like, we're just going to, it's a charade. And I think the first part in June, I know this is a long answer to your question, but
No, this is great.
This is great. When they were going to have the debates, I think that part of that was to get Joe out. I tend to slide in whoever they have. I don't know if it's Hillary, I don't know if it's whoever it is, but it's to slide in somebody.
Right.
And I think the other way of doing that was to get Trump indicted, and They managed to do that. I don't know if the debate's still going to happen. So it was very early on. But I think the way that we're headed is into an absolutely controlled country. And I don't even know who we're controlled by anymore because it just seems global at this point.
History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever.
That it's very black and white in our culture. You're either a victimizer or you're a victim. And that's one or the other. And we've been able to use the victims to kind of victimize people that are supposed to be the victimizers. Like, I've never seen such a mass confusion being used. And none of it makes sense at this point, because what's the end game? Like, at the end game, we should want what's best for each other. If people are actually religious or hold Christian values, you should actually care about each other. But realistically, we're online, we're addicted to porn, we're staring at apps that control everything that we think. We're on SSRIs that are not tested. We're sitting there just addicted to everything that we scroll and touch. We're not getting media. There's no integrity in media, so we don't actually know what is the truth, like you said. We don't know what's happening, and we're just living in sort of this world of, at the moment, semi-controlled chaos. But the truth is, we don't really know what's going on, and I don't think people care to. There's so much information, why bother looking into it? Where you can just kind of pick a side and stand with it, and as long as it's divided or you're against somebody, when I think it leaves the majority of us actually somewhere in the middle, you know. And that's why I hate the idea of, like, oh, fence sitters, you're listening to both sides. We should be talking to both sides. I think there's, you know, I will give a lot of Republicans far more credit for going on to other shows and going on other programs. And, you know, at least they're willing to stand up a lot of times for what they believe, you know, regardless of if I believe with all of them, or even if I believe in half of their bullshit, because I think most politicians are just scumbags. I don't really care what side you're on.
Right.
You know, we're all guilty of that. But yeah, I think right now we're headed for something that I don't think we've ever seen the likes of. I'm terrified because I have a kid, and
Yeah.
it's not being like a doomsday thing, because I think we have the ability to fix it. I really do. I think we really do have the ability to kind of overcome this if we all open our eyes a little and stop letting the dumbest fucking people control the narrative.
How much do you think we are all brainwashed? And when do you know what's real?
Immensely. And I think a large problem with COVID is, yes, it was real, but so was the swine flu. So was bird flu. So were other things that weren't politicized. We didn't get a swine flu vaccine that was rushed through for some arbitrary reason. We didn't have somebody come out 4 years later, like Dr. Fauci, and say that literally every single guideline he created was bullshit.
Dr. Fauci admitted that the social distancing guidelines to stay 6 feet apart had no scientific basis.
I said that it is not based in science, and it just appeared.
From 6 feet away to wearing masks to everything. This is a congressional hearing, admitting that everything he said was a lie. We didn't get that with all of these others. So absolutely it was real. Absolutely it killed people. And I think, you know, and so did those other diseases. And I think when you get a lot of people that have a weaker immune system and something new and strong and potent like that comes out, of course it's gonna eradicate a lot of people. But we were paying more attention to a death clock. It comes down to a lot of washing your hands, taking care of yourself. I've never had COVID. Never.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I lived in New York during it. And if I did, I didn't feel it, you know? And
Right.
I was at the grocery store today, and of course I was wearing a mask and gloves, because why not be a psycho too?
Like a real fucking person in a pandemic.
But I walked by this guy who's wearing the same thing. He's a delivery driver. He's putting up, you know, sodas. And he's on the phone with his girlfriend. He's just going like, I keep watching the news and I'm so scared. I'm just so scared I'm going to get sick. And I can hear him, his whole conversation.
Oh, shit.
And I'm just making out like this is what a lot of people in the country do. Like,
Right.
they're fucking terrified because they're being told. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be cautious.
Right. Caution.
But this complete panic seems to be really hurting people.
But the way that I saw it was, okay, well, these masks didn't make a lot of sense to me because we had never, ever used them before. My mom was an RN, so just thinking back to what I knew as a kid. So Anthony and I were doing the shows when we first saw it, and it was 2019. They were going on the planes and they were checking people's temperatures. And then they started, welding people into their houses, which seems, suspicious.
Right.
It's almost like it may have came from there. I don't know, but whatever. And and then I was saying like, well, there's no way America is going to lock down. And Anthony was like, well, we'll see. It depends on how they sell it. And we did. And I was honestly just disappointed as a society because the idea of locking yourself indoors, being away from germs, not allowing yourself to get it out there, not allowing it to spread, which is actually going to make the disease start, losing its potency. Everything that I had ever heard about germs, and then the fact that we started silencing doctors, nothing about it seemed right to me. So all I did was I kept traveling, I kept working, I went on a plane every week. I treated it like it was no different than any other day, and I was fine.
Right.
And now a lot of people have lost loved ones to COVID, and I feel terrible, but I also wonder, was it that? Was it the treatment that they got? Was it jamming a ventilator down their throat when it was a completely unnecessary tool? Was it giving them a vaccine that they weren't ready for? Was it the fact that the original mRNA vaccine had 200 people do a test for it, and 200 of those people, their heart stopped? 5 didn't. Or 5 are still alive.
Wow.
200 hearts stopped. I've lost more friends now in my 40s that did not have fentanyl in their bloodstream. Like, there's just too many questions I have. And realistically, I wouldn't have that conspiracy theory mindset if somebody would be honest and tell me why that. If we could get an answer for it, but you're just telling me that my friend who's 40 died of natural causes, or my friend when he was 39, my friend who was 41, perfectly healthy, black dude, lifting weights, nothing in his system, drops dead like that instantly. Explain that to me.
Yeah.
And they don't know how. Like, we can't ask questions about that. Like, we can't say, I'm concerned that maybe we rushed something out, which we've now learned that we have. And then to be called an anti-vaxxer, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I believe in every vaccine. At least I've taken every one of them.
Yeah.
I had chickenpox. It almost killed me. I wish the vaccine was around when I was younger, so I could have just done that instead of been hospitalized. Like, I absolutely wish there were those things available. I think the idea that you can get one for genital warts and stuff, and or whatever HPV is great. It's a lot better than when I was young and people could just get, it's like you have that option. So I do believe very much in vaxxers, but this whole thing, there's so many unanswered questions that and I don't trust the government. I don't, because I've talked about it on a lot of shows, but my dad got an Agent Orange from Vietnam. They refused to admit that a soft cell sarcoma came from Agent Orange. They didn't give him a penny. He lost every dollar he had trying to stay alive until he died after suffering for 4 years with a horrible, horrible brain tumor.
Oh my God.
They gave him a folded flag and they shot off guns. Since then, they've admitted that the soft cell sarcoma he had was absolutely and definitely a result of Agent Orange, which led to my mom's suicide.
Oh my God.
But as a result of it, because even though my brother and I were 13 when my dad first got sick and 18 when he died, our family is rewarded nothing because, we were 18 when he died. So it doesn't matter. You should be over it by now. And it's not about the fact that it's money. It's that I watched my dad work for everything and then lose everything. And it was for what reason? And for getting drafted into a war, not being a pussy and running from it, staying on as a medic when he could have left and
Yeah,
helping other people. Like he was a war hero, and this country fucking killed him.
that's crazy,
So
man.
I have a lot of anger when we, sorry, but I'm a comic too. No, but it's like
No,
I get very angry about this stuff because I just have too many questions, and everybody has these paint by number bullshit responses that have to do with being fueled by like you said, the sort of brainwash paint by numbers, answers such as anti-vaxxer,
right,
all this, and it's an absurd notion because it can be further from the truth of what I believe.
right on, man. And God bless you, man, and your dad for serving our country. And it's a shame that the government didn't stand behind him and his family and you guys. And yeah, so sorry about that you
Oh
had to go
no, it's
through that.
I mean, yeah, it sucks. What are you gonna? I mean, it sucks, but it's like,
Yeah,
again, what are you gonna do? So it's like I feel very deeply for the people who lost people to COVID, but I really do wonder how many of you lost your family member to COVID.
right, right.
Was it a diagnosis? Because, like in New York, when they pulled that boat up, they were like, well, this is for the overflowing hospitals,
Oh
but
yeah,
nobody was ever on the ship. Like we were seeing it in real time being in New York because all the lies were starting in New York
yeah,
and everything wasn't real that was being reported on the news right in front of us. So we all knew it was completely fake. And Anthony was, 60 at the time. He didn't care that I was going to Detroit every week and flying back and coming in his house and going, you know what I mean?
right.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
logically, it didn't make any sense to be worried about that.
I just feel bad for these kids missing prom.
Oh, yes.
That's what I wanted to get down to,
It's so sad. Thank God some of the adults are posting their prom pictures.
Yeah, I saw
And
that too.
celebrities, because again, celebrities just need
Oh, don't they?
need to do something to say, hi, look at me, please look at me.
Right on. And you know what, too, when you do watch the hearings with Fauci and you see that it's so political, it's obviously every time it's a Democrat, like, thank you so much, Dr. Fauci, for all the things you've done. Then it's a Republican, they're like, Dr. Fauci, you did this, and let's play the tape, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that it's so political just makes me feel even more that it was political. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Tonight, Dr. Anthony Fauci in the hot seat.
You belong in prison.
I am so sorry that you are subjected to those level of attacks.
House Republicans pressing the former face of America's pandemic response on past COVID restrictions, including that rule Americans should stay 6 feet apart.
Wearing a mask, maintaining 6 feet of distance.
Fauci told the committee behind closed doors that 6-foot rule sort of just appeared. Today, clarifying he meant there were no clinical trials done.
Yes, and it's like, why are you siding with this guy just because you're a Democrat? And I know so many Democrats that think he's full of shit.
Right.
Like it's not like this is necessarily a Democratic standpoint to think that Fauci's a great guy. There's so many people that are going, this dude's on this massive pay scale. He's claiming to be a doctor. You're putting out, dude, they're putting in books in the stores going for kids like a doctor from Brooklyn, just so kids see that and think it's a trustworthy face like Mr. Rogers. They were putting it out on Disney Plus, so don't tell me that's not going after kids to make it seem like you should be believing everything that Fauci says. That's exactly who they were going for. And now it was same with the AIDS epidemic. The guy came up with the AZT cocktail. The dude from Dallas Buyers Club was driving to Mexico and coming up with a better answer for how to treat HIV and AIDS than this guy was. This dude was just jamming you with a cocktail and burying you. Another guy who wanted to stay alive and had skin in the game.
I'm afraid that you are nothing more than a common drug dealer. So if you'll excuse us, we would like...
I'm a drug dealer. Now you're the fucking drug dealer. I mean, goddamn, people are dying. And y'all are all up there afraid that we're going to find an alternative without you. See, the pharma companies pay the FDA to push their product. All right, so fuck no, they don't want to see my research.
All right.
I don't have enough cash in my pocket to make it worth their while.
And then here's the other part too. How many politicians did insider trading and invest in Pfizer and all these other companies like Pelosi and her hammerhead husband and everybody else who had to be involved in this, where it's like, you guys are all guilty of insider trading, but it's perfectly acceptable?
Right.
Why? You're the ones that made the laws. You're the ones that you knew that we were going to lock down. You knew that these things could happen, and you invested in pharmaceutical companies, and you became multi-millionaires off of it as public servants. And we're allowed to do that? Like, dude, to me, that's jail time.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No, absolutely not. Okay, thank you.
And we're too busy worrying about, porn stars and, no pun intended, but trumped up charges. It's just
no, it's true.
It's crazy, man. And that's one thing I do love about comedians and comics in general, and like yourself, that you comedians just in general always have the bullshit meter, and they could spot bullshit a mile away, and they're usually the first voice of common sense to come out and say what's going on here and question all of these things.
That relationship with Nancy Pelosi and insider trading and her husband is wild. Do you know that she's better at stock market picks
than Warren
Buffett and George Soros?
And that's why I think, shows like The Normal World and what you're doing, and Loftus and DeVito and Fela and, Gerard and Gutfeld, all of you guys are so important. Tell me, like, do you feel that urgency sometimes as a comedian where, hey, I got to go up and risk popularity maybe by saying the truth in this, or what I perceive as the truth? Like, take me through that bullshit meter of yours.
Well, like, yeah, if I know that if I'm doing a thing about Trump or something of where I'm talking about him specifically, not the same hacky bullshit everybody's going to talk about, being orange and I don't care about any of that stuff. I think he did some really great things. I think he also messed up a lot of things, like listening to Fauci was a big thing, and shutting down the country is a big thing. But I also give him the credit that, look, he didn't know, it was his first time in front of it, and he was dealing, but I think he could have handled it better, truthfully.
My fellow Americans, tonight, I want to speak with you about our nation's unprecedented response to the coronavirus outbreak that started in China and is now spreading throughout the world. Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic. We have been in frequent contact with our allies, and we are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to protect the American people.
But when I say stuff like that, or even when I talk about the porn star thing, it's like, he's guilty. Like, just live with the fact that he's guilty. Stop pretending he's not. And let's just admit that but there's no reason. I don't see it as anything that's even our business, or you should go to, like, it doesn't matter to me. Right. It has no effect on me whatsoever. Like, him even over evaluating a property to get a loan, whatever it is, the BlackRock, all these other companies that are allowed to, printing out all kinds of money, all these people that do stuff that actually does have an effect on everybody else, that to me is a crime. The stuff that a lot of these guys do behind closed doors, or some of the stuff, it doesn't bother me regardless. And a lot of times I think it's more immoral than illegal. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. So I know when I say something against it, a lot of people are 100% for their candidate, regardless of looking at any flaw that they might have, that they can't even laugh at them, which means they can't laugh at themselves. And I think that's terrible.
We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. There's a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party.
When Vivek first came out, I made fun of him a bit on our shows because I found him to be, at first, trying to do a Trump impression and disingenuous. The more I heard him, the more I liked him. So it's like as it went on, I'm like, you know what? I actually like the guy. I like a lot of what he's saying. I think I'd vote for him. I like him. But like I was with my first instinct is just to question it. And then later, I don't mind saying I was wrong,
Right.
or at least that my feelings changed. And to me, that's not flip flopping or being hypocritical. That's just being honest as you're learning more about somebody. So I know that a lot of times people will jump on that and attack me, or it's like being in the middle. They'll call you like a fence sitter or this and that. But I've never had a political party do anything for me to where I can stand there and go, they're 100% for me. Obviously, I lean right now because it's just, I get, as far as liberal ideology and also common sense, it just slides that way.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Democrats do shit. I don't think they do. I think they have no balls, and I don't think that they do anything. I mean, that's the truth. I don't see any of them doing anything.
No, I used to treat Biden with a little respect, not a lot, but a little, more than he deserves. And talk about he didn't do a good job. But now I say he's the worst president. He's incompetent. He's not a smart person. He has no idea. He can't find the stairs to a stage. See all the stairs we have? We got more stairs here. They're all over the place. How the hell do you not find them? You can walk in any direction, and yet you ever watch him? He goes like this. And then and so far he's doing good because there's a stair over there, but then he walks into a wall and stuff. Thank God for the Secret Service. They usually run off, take them. This is what we're running against.
I feel like too, if you take Trump on face value, he's probably one of the more liberal Republican presidents we've ever had too, and that gets overlooked a lot just because he's such a polarizing guy with the way he talks or whatever. But I do think the middle has shifted a little bit more left, because I think we've as a country just became way more tolerant of certain things that maybe in the past this ultra right wasn't. So I feel like the middle shifted a little bit, which I think is a good thing ultimately. But I do think that the far left has gone nuts, and that's why now we're seeing guys like Bill Maher almost feeling like a centrist, which is strange.
And see, and I get a lot of crap for that because I'm a fan of his. I just genuinely am. But I'm a fan of Gervais, and I'm a fan of people that hate Bill Maher. And I don't agree with everything that he says, but you see him, and it's like I think Bill Maher is definitely a liberal. I just think the stuff that he says is now, it just falls along the lines of common sense, which is just not a far left ideology, and also because he's also part Jewish, part Christian. So, at least the way he was raised,
right? Yeah.
It doesn't fall in lockstep with the Palestinian right. A lot of people are against him.
History's sad and full of wrongs, but you can't make them unhappen because a paraglider isn't a time machine.
So it's a bizarre place to be, and that's the problem with comedy. And he's another guy that'll look at it like this, where all of a sudden you had these Hannah Gatsby's and these other people come out of everywhere saying that, white people and men and black men and other people were not allowed to speak their minds because it was considered a microaggression or an aggression, and that we weren't allowed to use self-deprecating humor, and we weren't allowed to do these things. It's like, to me, that's like a psyop coming in and saying you're not allowed to use this tool you have that's very, very important to breaking down. Humor is the best thing you can use to break down nonsense, to find logic. A lot of times comedy is nothing more than saying, okay, here's the bullshit, this is the logic. That's it. Your punchline is the logical resolution of sifting through the bullshit. That's all it is. And then you had all these people coming out telling you couldn't do it. Like, look, I don't have an issue with trans. I do have an issue with pushing shit on elementary school kids. There's a difference between those two things.
Right. Yeah.
I just, to think that makes me some sort of hateful person, I'm not going to believe, because it doesn't. It's just, I don't, and I just don't buy it. I also don't buy a whole month celebrating anything. So if you want to do Black History Month, that's fine. I get it. We can learn about that in school. There's a lot of stuff that we ignore. Jackie Robinson. There's a lot of stuff that kids can learn about that a lot of great men overcame women in this country. But that's the story of America. You know, that's a very American, that's again an American tradition that should be taught to people. It's not so, that's what I kind of like. I don't like the idea of like black, white, whatever. That's American history. That's very, very important. And we can't get rid of history no matter how ugly it is. And that's something that's very important. And we're trying to do, we're trying to pretend that all these things didn't exist in the past. And that's the worst thing you can do because you can't move forward. You can't advance as a culture or a species unless you learn from the faults of your history, or it's doomed to repeat itself, which it seems it just keeps doing.
Yeah, exactly. And you also can't move forward if like for a lot of people, they're stuck on the past. They're like, well, you know, this happened 200 years ago. Yeah, but it's not going on now. It's we've gotten past that. We're trying to write the course now, like, you know, but they're still kind of rehashing the past. And I also don't like that they wanted to take down our history, whether it's through, you know, taking down statues or burning books or, you know, or change it. And like you, to your point, good, bad, ugly, and otherwise, I think we need to keep our history um, intact. You know, because it is important for us to learn and move forward. You know,
Things change. Countries, boundaries, empires. History is brutal, and humans are not good people. History's sad and full of wrongs, but you can't make them unhappen.
Well, and you know, I heard a great point too that somebody said the interesting thing about history is the good guys always won. What does that tell you? You know what I mean? It's like, so every time we were right, huh? You
That's
know,
a
so
great
it's like
point.
you know, that's a scary thing. It's like history already has been written in a favor. You know, so we have to be able to look back, especially on the things that show that the bad stuff happened, because that's the stuff people are willing to even talk about. You want to erase that part?
Right, right.
Much, you know, it's a terrifying thing, and I want I want that history to be there because yes, there are people who suffered, there are people who did or didn't, and there are people that may suffer now because of history in the, you know, in the past, but we're never going to advance. We're never going to fix the problems of now if we're still upset about problems that have already. Sorry, I got to plug in this computer, but that have already been, you know, remedied. At least I can't say fixed, but we're aware of them. We're doing what we can. You're never going to solve. You're never going to solve racism, hate, anything in the sense, because realistically, powerful people, hateful people, angry people, whatever it may be, people that don't like your height, your skin color, whatever it might be, it will always exist. So it's like we can't pretend that there's this idea of this kumbaya rah rah society where everybody's going to get along. But there is a society where people that are extraordinarily powerful will do anything they can to turn everybody on each other so they can have everything. And that's something that we can all, at least, I think, come together on to some degree. Like, no matter what our little bickering and fighting is, I think we can at least look at that and come together there. Like, that's our possibility. That's a hope we have.
Yeah, man. True. Yeah. And I do think, like, you know, I think we keep falling for it over and over again as far as them turning us against each other on whatever topics there might be, whether it's race or the trans issue or this issue, that issue. It feels like they're always trying to get us to go at each other.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started.
And that's something that bothers me a lot, because you're never going to get a full story to develop a full opinion unless you really dig for it. I just don't think it's possible.
Right. And that's what I think a lot of people, including myself, are kind of lean more towards watching stuff like The Normal World or watching Rogan or other podcasts, you know, name them out there, you know, where you feel like you're getting more of an honest, straightforward, unpaid for, you know, slant or, you know, objective.
And at least you're being, I mean, at least on our show, we're being honest of why we think it and honest of where we're ignorant about it. And we'll
Right.
even ask people to comment and say, because I might not know anything about a subject, just be reacting to an article, but I'm honest about the fact that I don't have the information and I'm making fun of it or just doing a parody of something where, we'll do an entire sketch based on what one side will say, and then we'll kind of mock that.
Racist. Racist.
We're live. Stop it. Stop. As I was saying, after receiving the booster, many people have become insufferably woke. They receive the shot and soon after start accusing everyone around them of being racist or homophobic.
Homophobe.
I am not a homophobe. I just didn't want to share a pizza with your gay friends because of germs.
Recently it was, what was it? The physical fitness is white supremacy.
Right.
So we did an entire thing about that. And there's so many different layers to it and to everything. And we don't have a lot of balls. Like I was watching the movie Civil War recently, and I was disappointed because it's like, okay, it's like the alliances of California, Texas, and something else, and you're like, what the fuck? Like they're just throwing California in there so they can kind of get away with this semi-redneck Confederate side,
Right.
but they don't mention politics. They don't mention who's on what side. They don't mention why the war is going on. They do off the main guy, which I do give them kind of credit for that because a lot of movies won't go that hard. But when I was watching it, it's like we're so afraid to even say what side this would be. Like we won't even be honest in a movie. It's like what this side would be. It would be right down the middle, a Republican versus Democrat sort of. Do it honestly, like it was supposed, but we don't have the balls. I think we're very, very scared as a culture, and I think 2020 and since has reasonably done that to us.
Yeah, and I think too, just with the comedy, I think that the fact of like to your point about with the movies, people are afraid to say what how they're feeling. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the conservative type comics really owning the comedy world these days. I feel like liberal comedians aren't nearly as funny as Republican or conservative type comedians. I think it's a lot because comedy has a lot to do with gusto and the balls and having the courage to say things. And I think that that's one thing that currently the way the pendulum's swinging is the right are the ones that are kind of stepping up to call out the hypocrisy, and the left are trying to, like the Colberts of the world and those types are just shills for to keep everybody happy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what I think is sad about Colbert is when he had his show on Comedy Central, I thought it was genius.
Yeah,
and I really, and in interviews, I remember a specific Rolling Stone interview where he was talking about, because he goes to church, he was talking about being kind of right leaning, and he was able to parody this kind of Bill O'Reilly over the top Fox thing because he was secretly kind of a fan of it.
Bill, you gotta play the game that the media elites want you to do, okay?
But he was able to also mock it to its core because as a comic and kind of being a Second City guy, there was this liberal part to him. But it works so well on Comedy Central because comedy is best when it comes from a knowing place. It's very easy to make fun of gay people from a distance, but if you actually see something that does a good job mocking itself, it's probably written by a gay guy or a trans guy. You know what I mean? Because they're making fun of what they're aware of. Like it's why if you watch Don't Be a Menace to South Central, it's going to be funnier than what a Klansman would write about an inner city movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
It comes from a place of experience, and I think that's important. And I think the part about Colbert is it's disingenuous because he's not being honest to who he is. And people will always reference this, but I do too because it's important. When he had dancing vax needles on his show, to me, that was the death of late night.
The vaccine.
Yeah. Because I, as a comic who always looked at late night as like the pinnacle, I no longer cared. I no longer cared if I was ever on it. I no longer had any respect for it. I just found it to be sad because it was nothing more than a Pfizer ad in the middle of a television show. There was nothing humorous about it. It was only just to tell you that, you know, vax good. If you don't have it, you're bad. And then shortly after, the White House tells you that everybody who's unvaxxed is about to face a winter of death. And we forget that.
Yeah.
But all of that happened.
For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated. For themselves, their families, and the hospitals they'll soon overwhelm. But there's good news. If you're vaccinated, you have your booster shot, you're protected from severe illness and death.
And to be a comedian and to go and to just do that for a paycheck when you're already wealthy, it's immoral, and it's not okay. It's not, and it's nothing that I have respect for at all. I just don't. I would rather watch Jimmy Fallon do a late night show. Like, I got my own late night show that, you know, that I put on Normal World, and it's like, and I'm still developing it and figuring out the exact ways to do it. But I can't watch a typical late night show anymore because I don't believe that I don't believe comedy first is a thing. I don't even know if it's second, third, or fourth at this point anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels like, I feel like all those late night shows kind of all fell into line with the powers that be. And yeah, to your point, man, when he was dancing with the needles and all of that, that was when it jumped the shark, man, because it was just like, it was just blatantly in your face. And then all the you know, the negativity towards anybody who wasn't going to fall in line. And, you know, like even Howard Stern, you know, don't let them in the hospitals if they're not vaccinated. Let them die. And
when are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Fuck them, fuck their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
You know, Schwarzenegger, all these people. And like you said, we kind of moved on and forgotten about that or forgave them or whatever. But you talk about history. I think that's a part of history that we need to you know, keep in mind, because it just shows you what the country's capable of if we go through this again.
No, and I couldn't agree with you more. And especially with with Stern coming out like that. Stern is somebody who is responsible for suicides, is responsible for bullying the shit out of people, is responsible for manipulating, bringing people on his show, hurting them, destroying lives, but people were always forgiving. I was, as a listener and a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I still will say, anybody who's saying, you know, he doesn't have it, I mean, he's still a great interviewer. He knows what he's doing. He still knows, he's still Stern to that degree. And I'm not saying you even have to be a shock job, but he sold out in a way that makes no sense to me, because he made more money being who he actually was than anybody has ever made being who they actually are. His risk was being fired from everywhere to take that risk, and then all of a sudden he hits this pinnacle, and he can only talk to celebrities and only side with like the most elitist bullshit. It makes no sense, because you don't have to. You already achieved it. You don't need to do that. It's unnecessary. You're supposed to be the voice of the working man, and he completely separated himself from that and made to think that anybody, like, he became authoritarian. That's my problem, I guess, is if I was going to sum it up.
Yeah, man, for real. And yeah, I was a huge Stern fan my whole life, pretty much, you know, but it's so disappointing and I think the reason why he's changed so much and has gone, you know, like just took this sharp turn, like you said, I think is because I think it's the way he wants to be remembered, what he wants his legacy. I think he's trying to twist history around so we forget about the blackface. We forget about the spankings and the humiliation he did to people. We forget about the suicides he's responsible for, all those things, and we remember him as this great interviewer who interviewed Biden and what's his Bruce Springsteen. It's like, sorry, dude. Anybody who cares about you remembers what you were, and that's what you're gonna be remembered for.
You know what? It's happening very, very quickly now. We've just got started in Dallas radio. We've been on in Cleveland, Los Angeles. We're going to be #1. It's very exciting.
But Howard Stern has not gotten to the top of the entertainment C list without taking victims. Handicapped people, fat people, bald people, and people like John DeBella.
And everybody who cares is okay with that.
Right,
Like, they forgave you for what you did, and it wasn't even, look, and I shouldn't even say that. I didn't need an apology from you.
Right. Yeah.
I was a fan. I feel bad for the people that lost someone. Obviously he went over the line sometimes, but look, I kept listening. I'm complicit in that. So is everybody who kept paying attention. You don't owe anybody an apology. You don't have to switch gears and start, I understand feeling remorse for it, and he can say he feels remorse for it. But when you're doing it for your own ego and your own narcissism, like you're saying, at least that's what I'm getting from it, and to flip it, to try to convince other people that's how you want to be remembered. Howard Stern will always be remembered as somebody who was great and then became a complete fucking pussy at the end of his life.
Love it. That's spot on, man. That's spot on, man. And the last thing I want to bring up before I let you go here is the Pope recently met with over 100 comedians at the Vatican, and it seems to be a lot of like left-leaning comics. I just wanted to know, like Whoopi Goldberg, Colbert, Fallon, Chris Rock, Conan, and other comedians from across the world. Why do you think those were the comics that went there, and what do you think as a Christian? I'm a Catholic too, and what's your take on this Pope, and what do you think the motive is here?
It's tough to say. I mean, I hope it's a positive thing, because I think that Chris Rock, Conan, I think those are good people.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think Conan left late night for reasons other than he made public. I think that he's not dancing around with needles because he made a choice to leave whatever offer he had. And I don't think that he's brought it up, and I don't think he's getting the credit that he gets for not being, because he didn't sell out.
Right.
And I love Conan, and he didn't sell out. And he always was, liberal and democratic, but I hope, because Catholicism has certainly rewritten itself and at least changed its ways, and tried to right its wrongs and push itself in a right direction. And I hope maybe it's part of a larger discussion to bring in people that are younger and to bring people towards God. I hope that's what it is. I don't know, but I don't think it's nefarious, personally. And my hope is that it's not. And my honest hope is that I think that a lot of people too, as they're getting older and they're looking at their lives, you do have to think of, do you believe in that next plane of existence? Do you want to get there? Is that important to your kids? Is that important to you? And you look at the people that go there, and like I said, Colbert, he has talked about his belief in God. So I think it is about probably trying to get younger people to believe in something that's not just a narrative that maybe some of them feel responsible for. And that's at least my hope.
Yeah, no, I same here. And I think that was, perfect. The way you said it and everything else. And I hope that there's a positive thing that comes out of it as well. Where maybe I don't know if he handpicked these comics or how they were picked, they were chosen, but maybe he's like, he wants to help save them, or knows that they're influential figures in our culture, and maybe they could help steer the world into the right direction. Because like we said, comedy, it all is to me, every great generation is kind of led in a way by the comedians, whether it's, Mort Solani, Bruce, Carlin, you could argue Bill Hicks or whoever, Chris Rock, Chappelle. There are always these kind of voices. Louis C.K., you could say, is one that kind of bring light or mirror to to our society, you know. So I think you know, it's very extremely important.
But the problem too with a lot of the people that you mentioned, and this can even go for Chris Rock and other people, but especially when you look at somebody like Lenny Bruce and Mort Saul and Richard Pryor, and they suffered. So future people in comedy and in show business could do better and could have a better shot and better opportunities. They suffered. Where now, if it feels like a lot of the comics are making the public suffer, and that's what I think is sad. And they're making it harder on future comedians, and that's where I think the shift is, and that's what I think has to change back. We have to be willing to take risks, and that's something that you're just not seeing, like especially in late night. But like those old comics, they risked a lot. And when Richard Pryor decided to not be doing the sort of clean Cosby shtick and go into areas and talk about his real life and be willing to be called the N-word and be attacked and be hurt, he did it because he believed that this had to be done. This had to be said to improve. Carlin, same deal. Bruce, same deal. And now it's the opposite, and that needs to change.
We see it a little bit with Chappelle because he's taken on one specific group, so to speak. You know, like it seems like they're against him, but I don't know if he's not taking them on. They're taking him on, trying to silence him.
I was going to say he's taken on everybody, and they've sort of latched onto him. But you're right, Chappelle came back, and they've definitely treated him like a pariah, and I think it's tragic.
But and that's why it's important, like, you know, if people think Chappelle's the one of the best or not, or however you feel about him, I think it's important to, I think so. And I think it's important to support him and to support comedians, you know, because they are the voice of honesty, you know, and they're the ones, you know, the emperor, you know, what is it? The naked emperor? I can't think of the phrase.
Emperor has no clothes.
Yeah, the emperor has no clothes.
yeah. No, I got you. I knew what you meant.
Yeah. But Dave, thanks so much, man. I love the Normal World. Love the whole team you got over there. I got to, deal with Angela a little bit through emails when we're working on that sketch. She's awesome. Quarter Black Garrett.
Great,
yeah, the whole team you got over there is awesome. Everybody should check out the show on Blaze TV. Again, it's always a pleasure talking to you because I always learn so much, and just your insight on these issues, man, really are priceless stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time, and just tell everybody where they could find you and follow you and see some of your dates you got coming up, and they could catch you live.
Yes, go to DaveLandau.com. I do got some East Coast dates coming up. You can check that out, and you can go to Normal World on YouTube and just hit subscribe. That's all you got to do. Or if you want to sub to Blaze, just hit code NORMAL. You'll get 20% off your year subscription. Everything's behind the paywall there. But if you want to just sub and watch the show, YouTube, just hit, and also iTunes and Spotify. They can find it there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Dave Landau, everybody.